What's going on, guys? In this video, we will be talking about international stocks and why I personally believe it is going to be the next buy of the decade. It is going to be a better buy than the S&P 500, and I'm going to explain why. Now you can see this is the VXUS, which is a Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. It is down 24% for the year. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 for the year is only down 11.96%. And if we go out 10 years, the S&P 500 has had over 169% return. Meanwhile, the International Index Fund has only had a 9% return. So you may be thinking, why would I ever want to put my money into something that has performed so poorly over the past decade? I am going to show you why, because I thought the same way as you. I thought I'll never touch international stocks, let alone even know how to invest in international stocks. It's actually very simple. Whatever brokerage account you're using, Robinhood, TD Ameritrade, Fidelity, you type in VXUS. It is an ETF of all the international stocks that you can invest in. If you're in America, you don't have to worry about having a special brokerage account. It's that easy. It's just like buying the S&P 500 or any other American stock. Let's just jump over to the holdings. This is just a real quick breakdown in case you don't know about international stocks. Here's all of your international companies, or at least the top 10 holdings, which makes up a little under 9% out of these 7,891 stocks. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, we should all know that company now, especially everything going on with Taiwan. We got Nestle, that's your chocolate and candy. I don't know what Roche Holding is. Tencent, that's TikTok. Samsung Electronics, that's the phones. If you're not an Apple user, I personally am not. So there you go. You can invest in Samsung that way. Toyota, Shell. So it's companies we have heard of. There's a bunch of international companies that you may not even realize are international, but this is one of many ETFs to hold on to international stocks. But now you still may be wondering, why would I do this? It has done so poorly over the past decade, and we need to remember survivorship bias. So I'll put this article in the description. You can read about it, but essentially survivorship bias was something that happened back in 1942, where all of these American planes kept getting shot down overseas, and they want to know, how can we reinforce the armor so we'll have less casualties? So they would take all of the planes that came back and analyze all of the bullet holes, and you could see most of the bullet holes are where these white dots are. So the easy option is, hey, let's just fortify these white holes, or the spots where the white holes are, to add armor that way, and then we're golden. But this is where survivorship bias comes into play. This is the wrong place to put the armor. You want to put the armor where there's no holes, because these are the planes that are not returning. Why did this plane return? Because it was shot in all of the places that it could deal with getting shot. If you get shot in the cockpit, or maybe something important is here and here, these planes are not making it home. So you want to almost switch your thinking. I don't want to completely describe this. You could read the article. I also have a video about survivorship bias that goes more into detail about it. But that's what we're doing right now with the S&P 500. We are looking at the past thinking, wow, it's done so great. It's going to continue to do great. So I'm going to put my money into the S&P 500. Meanwhile, we see something like the VXUS, and we see the complete opposite. And we think, man, over the past 10 years, it has not done well. It's only went up 9.9%. Again, survivorship bias. Just because that's what happened in the past doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. And here's what I mean. You could see, if we look at the US and international stocks, they move in cycles. Every about 10 or 15 years, you can see that there's a shift. International stocks outperform US stocks, then US stocks outperform, and it goes back and forth, on average 7.9 years. And we're currently at an 11.3 year run for US stocks. So you could look at this like, we're due for international stocks to start to perform really well. Another article, and this is from BlackRock. BlackRock breaks down, hey, here's all the returns over the past however many years, 40 some odd years of international and US stocks, and you could see the international stocks have performed much worse than the US stocks out of the last 12 years. But look at back in the early 2000s, look back in the 1980s, you could see that international stocks have had some great runs. And if we dive down even more into it, you could see any time in the past from 1971 to 2021, when the US stocks returned less than 4%, international stocks outperformed 100% of the time. When US stocks had a less than 6% return, international stocks outperformed 94% of the time. And then for all periods, instead of just looking at a 10-year window, if we look at a much larger time frame, you could see it's pretty balanced. Yes, US stocks have performed better most of the time, 56% of the time, but 44% of the time, international stocks outperformed US stocks. So I'm not saying throw all of your money into international stocks. I'm not going to do that because I like the US stocks that I have. I like the US ETFs that I have, and I don't want to bet against the United States, but I'm now open to diversifying into international stocks. Maybe a lot 10 or 15% into international ETFs. And there's a couple of choices out there. You have the VXUS, which is the Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. And again, if we jump over to the holdings, you could see that there's almost 8,000 stocks. There's also the IXUS, which is iShares. And if we jump over to the holdings, you could see there is over 4,000 stocks. And then there's the VEA. This is the developed markets. And if we look at holdings, I think it's a lot less. All right, a little less, 4,149. Pretty much you're chopping off those 3,000 high-risk penny stocks that you see in the Vanguard XUS. And you could see that they have a pretty nice breakdown. They're very diversified. Same with this one, and even same with this one. I mean, when you have over 4,000 stocks, you're going to be diversified no matter which way you look at it. And the last thing I want to point out is the dividend is actually very high for all of them. You can see this is the VEA. You're getting a nice 3.82%. For the VXUS, you're getting 3.81%. And then the iShares, let's jump over to dividends. You're getting 3.85%. And this is all compared to the S&P 500, which isn't even getting 1.5% right now. And guys, remember, this is not financial advice. This is just my opinion, but I've seen this all over the internet a lot recently on Twitter that people are starting to buy into international stocks. And this is what I've learned from them. So I just want to act as one of those echo chambers to you guys to maybe this is something you would want to do with your portfolio, especially if you want to be more diverse. We don't know what the future holds. The US could have a terrible decade. It could be like the 1970s again, or it could be like the early 2000s, and US stocks will just continue to get beaten up, which will give international stocks their time to shine. But I'm only putting in 10, 15, maybe 20%. Most of it will still be in the US holdings. But if you like this video, guys, make sure to smash that like button. And as always, I will see you in the next one.